Okay, guys, so if you are just now tuning in, you are watching or listening to Behind the Mug, a podcast where we talk about all kinds of different stuff, being a mom, being a female, being a business owner, being a member of society, being literally anything that you can imagine right here in Eastern Kentucky. I am Jen Kopecky.
And I am Amy Wallen-Reed.
And we are super excited to be bringing you our 4th episode of Behind the Mug. So we asked for our listeners and viewers to submit their stories about being an overcomer. Are you an overcomer of anything, literally? Anything from drug addiction to food addiction to abuse to no sound. Okay. Somebody else tell us if you can hear us or not. I got sound on mine.
Somebody said yes, you can hear us. No? Nobody? Anybody?
Nobody's in here yet.
Sorry.
But, okay. I'll share this.
There's no sound on mine either.
Check. 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me?
Oh,
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
I just touched you. I'm so
Does
sorry.
anyone hear me?
Oh my God. Oh God.
Can anybody hear me?
Okay, there's sound on mine, so let's just keep going. All right, guys. If something happens and you can't hear us, please just say something so we know. Anyway, so we asked people to submit their stories on what they have overcome. What have you overcome, if anything? And we did receive a story, and we were super excited to share it with you guys. But before we do that, we're going to share a story from last week when we asked our listeners and viewers to submit a good work story, whether it's inspirational, funny, whatever it may be. And we have a really funny one. So I'm going to go ahead and share that one. I'm getting an echo.
I touched my nose.
Okay, so this one is a friend of mine. Her name is Jamie. She is a school teacher in Lexington, and she did not say that she wanted to stay anonymous, so I totally just told who that was. Anyway, this is my best friend, and this story is one of my favorite stories of all time. So here we go. Like I said, Jamie is a school teacher. She teaches at a high school in Lexington. And here is her story. Whenever people bring up most embarrassing moments, I always share this story. It just so happens to be a work story and a coffee story. I had been a teacher in a very large public high school for 2 years and was still bright-eyed and disillusioned about my ability to change the world one kid at a time. I was bubbly, to say the least. If you remember much about 2010, you'll recall that people used the phrase, "That's what she said," to eruptions of giggles every time. Michael Scott was a comedy gold. Jamie's a really good storyteller, too, if you can't tell. So yeah. I can hear her in my head telling this story. I have heard her tell this story, actually, and she's just funny. Okay. Also worth noting, before we get into the details of this story, is that for me, many people who would also listen to this podcast, coffee is life. I have a full pot of coffee in my classroom, and I drink it all day. So it's 5th hour, and I've just eaten lunch, and I'm having my post-lunch coffee for the day. I'm also sitting in front of a large room full of teenagers lecturing about Freud's
Frauds.
Sorry. Freud's psychosexual stages of development. Always a fun topic to explain to children. I'm not sure what exactly proceeded the girl in the front of the room to say that's what she said, but I do remember that it was really funny. I had also just taken a big drink of coffee, and then she made me laugh. We've all had that moment where you start laughing with a mouthful, and it is terrifying. Am I going to spit this out? Am I going to get my shit together and swallow this like a responsible, respectable adult? Do they know I'm dying up here? I tried so hard to just swallow the coffee, but the kids caught on that I was struggling and initiated that course of ohs that you get when someone gets called to the principal's office. That only made me laugh harder. I knew I had a small trash can under the desk and decided to give up and go back there to spit it out. The next 30 seconds were a mistake. As I approached the trash can, I took a deep breath out of the view of the students. I foolishly thought I could swallow the coffee. I attempted, and it hit my windpipe and immediately made me vomit. Not like a tiny bit in my mouth, a full Mount St. Helens eruption from my gut. I put my hand over my mouth to try and stop it, but it only concentrated the spray like kinking a water hose, and caught in the line of the spray was a young man who just got shot all over his arm and the side of his face. Oh my gosh. The vomit composition was about 90% coffee, so he was now a lovely shade of soft brown. That poor kid. As soon as it happened, the bell rang and he ran out of the room, as did every other kid, in absolute horror. I burst into tears from shame and went to work cleaning up my embarrassment. I mean, I sobbed, mascara running down my face, certain that the rest of my career would be marked by this moment. I wrote paper towels around my arm and went to cleaning it up. It was on the floor, on my desk, my chair, student's desk, just everywhere. Vomit also has that distinct nauseating smell that was now filling my classroom. I tried to clean it up as much as I could, but the next class started to arrive and the aroma hit them. One kid gagged at the smell, and I quipped, "Someone got sick. Go to the library while I clean." Someone got sick, all right. Fortunately for me, it was Friday, and I had the weekend to mentally prepare to be that new teacher who puked on a kid for the remainder of the year.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Like,
God.
I can only imagine. Those kids thought it was hilarious at first, and then
Right?
she ends up puking everywhere.
She puked everywhere.
Even on a child.
I mean,
Like-
could you imagine being a student and that happening?
And just like the next day, like, how do you recover from that?
Oh my gosh, like I really would think this is like my entire career is going to
Just
be
like, I give up, guys. What?
like I think I give up on life.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
I want to think that I would feel really bad for the teacher, but putting
No.
myself back in the mind frame of a high school student, no way.
No,
You're
no,
going to talk about that
no.
for the rest
She
of the
will
year.
be marked as that.
I'm
Like,
sorry, Jamie, but you are marked as no, you're not.
You're puking
You're not.
teacher, but I'm sure you're really
At
cool
least she
teacher.
probably like could make light of the situation because she's
Yeah.
a very comical person. So she probably like was able to brush it off as a joke, and
I'm sure she
Yeah.
overcame that too.
that that could be an overcoming story.
It really could.
overcomer
Yeah.
story. Listen, you do have to overcome embarrassing moments like that.
I don't think I'm very easily embarrassed by a lot of things.
I'm
like
not-
falling or anything
no,
really doesn't
I
embarrass
can't
me
be
that much.
because I do the stupidest things
Oh, I do,
imaginable.
yeah.
So I'm pretty numb to the whole getting embarrassed thing, just
Yeah.
because
Just kind of.
I kind of got
Yeah.
toughened up to it. I've had some pretty embarrassing things happen to me.
Me too. That's
We did
great.
have another story of a girl who worked in, she wanted to remain anonymous. And it's not necessarily funny, but it's more like creepy
I haven't gotten to
kind
read
of
it yet.
story. So she worked in a local restaurant and basically had a stalker.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I'm
And
trying
that
to
would be
find
a
it.
hard situation because if you work in a public place like that, like they can easily come in every day. Like,
Yeah, and you don't have control of that.
No.
Like, there's nothing you can do about it. Okay, so she says, I would like to remain anonymous. Whenever I was in high school, I used to work. I don't even know if she wants me to say where she used to work, but she
I
used
would
to work.
say, yeah. I wouldn't
Yeah,
say
I'm not
it.
even going to say where
No.
it was, but it was like a local kind
Restaurant.
of fast food restaurant. Also, I was a very friendly, nice person, and I saw the good in everyone. Once an older man came in, and I waited on him per the usual. He told me what he wanted. I rang him up, and he handed him his ticket number. He was making casual conversation, and I was making it back, doing things like he was asking my name, where I go to school, etc. I genuinely thought it was harmless, and he was just a sweet older man. This was until he asked for my phone number. Come on, guys. And she's in high school.
Yeah.
And she probably looks like she's in high
Yeah,
school,
oh, yeah.
okay? Like my actual phone number so he could talk to me. I thought it was a joke at first, but he kept pushing and pushing. I ended up just brushing it off and hiding in the back until he left, not thinking another thing of it. Well, he ends up coming in a couple days later saying, "Hi, my little friend, I've missed you." He ends up coming in once every couple of weeks, and he always memorized the weeks that he last saw me. For example, he would say, "Hi, I haven't seen you in like 4.5 weeks." That's creepy.
Like the exact amount of
Yeah.
days.
Like, I imagine, like, the crazy, like, lipstick wearing, like, "You're so pretty.
I've missed you.
I've missed you, my pretty."
For 4.5 weeks.
Oh, my goodness. It's been 4 lonely weeks.
I missed you.
This isn't funny. It is, but, like, that's kind of scary.
Yeah, that would
Just crazy stuff like that. I never told anyone. I just thought he was another creepy perv, or maybe he's lonely.
Well, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but like in a fast food restaurant, you see a lot of people, and a lot of people are
Yeah.
nice to you and cordial and just talk to you. So, and you don't have time to tell your coworkers like, "Hey, he was being really creepy."
Right.
You know?
And you also don't have time to really, like, stop her through and think, was he being creepy, or, like, was he just
Yeah.
nice?
Yeah,
Some people
exactly.
are mistaken by their friendliness just
Yeah.
because. But then it gets kind of crazy, and, like, she knows that it was more than that. Okay. I just let it go until one night I was cheering at a home football game, and like an idiot, once before I told him I cheered, and when he was asking me questions. He stood on the railing in front of the sideline of where I was cheering, and beside of him was someone I knew. He was making conversation with the guy I knew, and then he pointed at me and kept talking. Luckily, my friend, who is a tall, muscular girl, was beside me, and I confided in her. She stared him down with an evil look until he left. Thank God for that. The following Monday at school, I asked the guy if he knew the creepy man. I'm guessing the guy that he was talking to.
Yeah.
He said no, but he said he came there to watch his little friend cheer, and said her name. Like I said, I came to watch my little friend, insert name, cheer. I also had 2 different girls around my age tell me that they ran into him in public, and he told them to tell me hi and that he misses me. After this, I had a bad feeling in my gut, and I ended up going to a police officer. Thank God that she went to a police officer. I mean, like, you don't take those things lightly. Not these days. The police officer ended up talking to him, and I never heard from the man again. It still sends chills to me to this day that this man knew where I worked, places I'd be, etc., and what would have happened if I had not went to the police. Lesson learned: do not be naive and never be too nice if someone makes you feel uncomfortable. If an older man takes interest in you, he probably has bad intentions behind it.
You just never know. 'Cause, like,
What a world we live in.
I like to be as friendly as possible when I go to a fast food restaurant or anywhere,
Right.
because I know how hard of a job that is. But at the same time, you have to kind of, because she just was casually explaining, like, yeah, I go to school here, I'm a cheerleader. Like, that's just kind of
It's just casual
things
conversation.
that
You would not think that telling someone that you cheered in high school would be an invitation.
No. That's just
For,
wild.
yeah,
But I'm
it
so
really
glad
is.
it didn't get, like, any crazier, because
What if she hadn't gone to the place? Would
Yeah.
it have gotten crazier?
it could have. It really
It's
could have.
nuts. It's nuts. We live in a crazy
Wow.
world, you guys.
Um,
So that one wasn't necessarily funny. It was kind of like a creepy story.
Hey, everybody.
Creepy story.
We'll just give an update. We are recording our podcasts, and we are live while we do that. We just wanted to do this today because we felt like it would be a great time for people, we could have some conversations on here as well. We'll give our disclaimer once again for the new people that are just tuning in.
If you only see half of Amy's face, it's because
We're social distancing. We are.
It's not because I have cooties.
No. We are just being as safe as possible.
We are.
And we want everyone else to stay as safe as possible, too. So we have our space disinfected, and we are staying a good distance away from each other as well. But we are reading stories, and you can replay this later to listen to the stories that Jen has already read to you.
Yeah.
They're great.
Or if you want to catch it later on our podcast, you can go on Spotify. Later on in the week, it'll be available on Spotify and also on YouTube if you want to watch this later. Because this could be kind of a long live video.
Yeah.
But like Amy said, we just wanted to kind of give, if you guys at home or, I don't know, looking for something to do that isn't Netflix, if you've run out of, crazy documentaries or something, then you know what? Tune in and watch us. Here we are. For your viewing pleasure.
Viewing entertainment.
Okay, so what else do we got?
We have an Overcomer story that's
We
really
do have
good.
an Overcomer story. So we've kind of hit some funny things. Most of our podcasts have been really, really funny, and I'm sure we'll laugh at some point before we tap out on this.
Okay.
But I think that we're going to switch over to our first Overcomer story, and then I may share a little on mine if there's some time.
Yes.
So do you want to?
Do you care if I read it from your phone?
No, not a bit. Because you don't have
I don't think
your
I
phone.
can get it off. Yeah.
You're online.
So if you can just get on our email, I can read it from there.
Got it.
Thank you all for watching.
She's trying to stay away from me.
I'm trying to stay away from Jen. But yeah, so we're going to read an Overcomer story.
Okay. And this person did want to remain anonymous.
Wipe it down.
Go.
Okay, here we go. Let me find it. Hold on.
Oh, sorry. I
It's
sanitized
okay.
my screen, and then I lost
away.
the Overcomer story.
Okay. When most people talk about addiction, they are normally the addicted. I'm the opposite. I was someone trying to love an addict. 30 years old, starting completely over in life with a 1-year-old. Never would I have dreamed that would be my reality. The person I ended up with was not the person I married, and that was not my fault. Let's rewind a few years. 26 years old, in a new state, and newlywed. Finally, I was living my fairy tale. Life was perfect until it wasn't. Slowly, over the next couple years, things started to change. Secrets, lies, odd behavior. On a random night at midnight, my husband's phone got a text that made me curious enough to look. It was from a female coworker talking about prescription meds you can mix together to make a nice little cocktail. What the hell did I just read? All the times I chalked drowsiness and behavior to working so much, or just drained in every aspect of the word. That addiction grew like wildfire over the next few years. I found myself making excuses and downright lying to others for him. I think I even believed those lies. Trust was gone, stability was gone, the attraction was gone. Who was this person living in my home? What did I do? Threw a baby into the mix, thinking it would make me happy enough to stay. I knew the night my child came into this world that I had to get out. Throughout the first year with the baby, I tried. I did everything, including locking meds in a safe and distributing them as prescribed, thinking, okay, this is working, things are better. I was wrong. I'd find pills hidden in pockets of jackets in the closet or in a Tylenol bottle. I couldn't save him and my child and I, so I did what any mother would do. I left. The struggle became so much harder by me doing that. Have you ever bruised a narcissistic person's ego? Let me tell you, you'll have a war on your hands. Throughout those battles, I found Jesus. I don't know how I could have made it through without him. I had nowhere else to turn for help or comfort when I decided to walk through my church's doors on an Easter Sunday. Since then, he has taken care of us. I prayed for a man to come into our lives that could give my child and I the love and care we both deserved. Boy, was he listening. We were blessed with the most incredible human. Life is good. Love is pure. We still have struggles, but the goodness in the rest outweighs all. If I could help another human by telling them you can't save someone, at some point you have to save yourself. If you can lay your head down at night in peace and know you've done everything possible, then I think it's okay to dust off your feet and walk away. We are not meant to live miserable. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. Jeremiah 29:11. Man.
That's
a
a good one.
major. Sorry.
Well, I mean, and you'll see me cry on this because this for me, like, hearing the other side of this, of somebody being, I'm pulling my Facebook back up, guys, so that if you guys have any questions or anything, I can hop on here. Amy's got her phone on the live video, so, but hearing the other side of this for me is very emotional. Because my overcomer's story is the opposite, because I was the addict. You know, I was the one using and hurting my family members and friends. So, hearing that my family members are also overcomers, it's like, you know, like I tell my mom all the time, like, you need to share your story of my addiction just like this person did, because there's more stories like that out there that reaches a whole different group. Does that make sense?
It affects everyone. And, like, you
It
don't
does.
realize how many different people.
Yeah.
It's just like a trickle-down effect.
Yeah, so you hear people sharing their stories all the time of what it's like to be an addict and what it's like to be a recovering addict and all of that. But very rarely do you hear the stories from the other
From
side.
the other side.
Yeah, and so we know who this person is, but she wanted to remain anonymous, and I think she's may or may not be listening, but I am so proud of you for sharing that, because that's a struggle. And I think, you know, it's embarrassing to be an addict, but it's also embarrassing to be a person that has to deal with an addict. You know,
Because you have to deal with every aspect of it.
well,
especially-
and people are like probably looking at you like, why are you choosing to do this?
Yeah.
You know, even though you left for a while, you chose to do that, and there is some sort of embarrassment that goes along with actively choosing
Yeah.
to stay somewhere that you know is not a good situation for you and your child, when you really and truly you were trying to be the hero, you were trying to be the saver, you know, and you cannot save an addict. They have to save themselves. Absolutely have to. And you made the right decision, and I just think that you are a beautiful woman, and I'm so, so happy for you that you have overcome this and found Jesus and allowed him to work his way in your life. And it's just a beautiful story.
It really is.
It really is
Thank
an
you so much
absolutely
for
beautiful.
sending
Thank you
that
so
in. It
much
was
for sending that. Yeah.
just awesome.
And guys, if you guys have anything similar to that, please share it, because I mean, even if it's just something that touches us, but I promise you, like, it's going to be something that touches. There's going to be a lot of people, I think, listening to this podcast, because we have been very blessed to have tons of listeners and viewers. So somebody out there is going to hear that story from you, and it's going to touch their life.
Yeah.
Big time.
It really, I mean, it's amazing. That's
Yeah.
just,
So while we're
to flip it
on
around.
the topic of recovery, I'll share a little bit about my story. I know in our first podcast I might have spoke a little bit about
just touched on just a
addiction and
little bit.
recovery and stuff. I don't really think I touched a whole lot on it. But since that's what we're talking about anyways, I'll tell a little bit background on Mom. So something that I want to do in the near future is have a whole podcast, and maybe we can go live on it too, to talk about mental illness. Because I think that it's finally, like, able to be talked about amongst society, to where people aren't, like, shaming it or blowing it off and saying, you know, people are just dramatic or whatever. So I think that mental illness, actually, I know, was the one thing that kind of sparked my drug abuse. And I was young. I was like 14 years old when I started experimenting with prescription pain medicine. And they were easy to get a hold of then. there, unfortunately, as a teenager, I had easy access to it. Don't ask me how. I don't know if it was everybody or if it was just the group I was with or, whatever. But, you have your teenager regular, experimental partying and stuff like that, which I did. But it was different for me because I struggled with self-hate. I struggled with really, really low self-esteem. And y'all, I'm, not even kidding. I had a really blessed childhood. My parents are phenomenal. My sister was always my best friend. I always had incredible friends. I mean, if anybody knew me back in high school, may or may not even know that I had that struggle with my self-esteem and stuff because I feel like I was a pretty well-liked person. I was nice to everybody. I didn't have any kind of, I never witnessed any bullying. Nothing. But for some strange reason, I hated myself. I compared myself to every single female that walked the planet. I thought I was the fattest, ugliest person to exist. The amount of self-hate that I had within me as a young, innocent, clueless 14-year-old girl is ridiculous.
The teenage years are so hard.
Oh, my God. And, social media wasn't even a thing then.
Yeah. So just imagine if it was.
Yeah. Y'all, I ain't even playing. I'm not trying to be extreme. If social media was a thing when I was in high school, I don't know that I would still be here. It's possible that I would have committed suicide because I was suicidal. I was hurting myself. I was harming my body. I was, cutting my arms and stuff like that. Self-mutilation was something that, for some strange reason, it's almost like it got out the pain. It was very strange. I can't really explain it. And in a lot of ways, I think that Satan had me as a teenage girl right where he wanted me. I am a very spiritual person, and I'm a Christian, and I know now that Satan had a hold of me. That's what I believe. I also think that I just had that thought process of tornado thoughts every single day. One thing led to another, which got me stressed out. My anxiety would kick in. I wouldn't do my schoolwork because I couldn't focus. And then I started, comparing myself to my friends' grades, the way my friends look, all that. So when we started the experimental partying that teenagers typically do, it was different for me because my brain was numb and I didn't think about them things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I did not think about those things, so I liked it. Mm-hmm. So I took it to the next level every single time until I finally experimented with pills, and it numbed my brain in a way that I was actually able to laugh and have a good time. And then, of course, it would wear away. You're right back where you started. So it was eventually, by the time I was in my early 20s, I was very addicted to prescription pain medicine. I was always trying to figure out where to get the next pill. And before I knew it, it just had a toll on my life. I moved to Lexington. I ended up keeping people in my life at the time. The pill mills were a big deal back then, where, basically people could go and get prescription pain medicine like that. They didn't really have to have a whole lot wrong with them. Doctors were making money on it. People were making money on it. People were getting high on it, selling them left and right. And I weaseled my way into getting in with a group of people who would go to the doctor or would buy mass amounts from people and resell them. And I would help push them, and I would help do all that, It was a big thing in this area. I moved to Lexington for a little while, and that's when I got really, really bad. I was with someone who was heavily using, and he also got prescriptions, and we would just, every month we would use them, we would fight. There was a lot of abusive stuff happening, there. And anyways, one night I was very upset with where I was in my life, and I just took a lot. I took a lot. I don't know how I'm here. I had taken them and swapped them. It's when Oxycontin was real big back then, and I had taken them and swapped them and gotten decent amount of Oxycontins and had mixed them together. And my parents knew something was wrong with me. And they were trying to call me, and I wasn't answering, and I had taken enough to overdose. And they drove all the way from Prestonsburg and found me in my apartment. And it was from then that my next steps towards sobriety kind of started. I had to go to the hospital. I had to get put in a facility for a while, and it saved my life completely. But my parents were angels. They took me home. I was able to go and detox in a center, which was very helpful. But when I got home, they just helped me so much. It was every single day, just with anybody that's recovering is one day at a time. And it has been 12 years. So this has been...
That's amazing.
This is something that I just went through. Those of you who are just learning this about me, it has been about 12 years of battling the prescription pain medicine.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It was not easy at all. Every day is, as an addict, every single day is a struggle because you realize you aren't just addicted to, like, those things. Like, you're an addict. So anything I do can be taken to the next level, even work. I went from pill addiction to food addiction, gained so much weight, got up to like 268 pounds. And then when I found fitness, I was like total fitness addiction. Then I got like really teeny tiny skinny, and was unhealthy in that way. So for me personally, being, an overcomer, I will be overcoming addiction in general until the day I die. And that's something that every addict, I really pray, can get to the point, that they get that. They understand you're always going to be an addict. It took me a really long time to comprehend that. But it's a struggle. It's a struggle every single day, not because I want to, like, do pills or anything, but because I'm always fearful of, oh gosh, what if I get addicted to this or that, or, relationships. Coffee. I'm safe with coffee.
Yeah.
I'm addicted to coffee, and I'm okay with that.
I know it's okay.
So there's my story. It's
amazing.
Recovery is 100% possible. It is very difficult. You have to be in tune. You have to be in tune with it every single day, all the time. So, yeah, hearing the other side of that, I really hope one day that my mom will share her story, and my dad. I think my mom would before my dad would. But I'm really hoping that one day that she will share her story of what it's like to be an overcomer of dealing with someone who is an addict.
Because everyone has a different aspect of it and a different take on it, and it affects everyone differently.
Yeah.
Really
And,
does.
it can even be, like, guys, you all can still share your stories. It's not too late, because we can do more of these.
We totally can.
If you want to send them to us privately, you can send them to behindthemugpodcast@gmail.com. And, being an overcomer is, there's many things that can be pertaining to. It doesn't just have to be drug addiction or any kind of addiction, really.
Awesome. Thank you all for watching. We really appreciate your stories, and I know other people love to hear them. If you want to send them in, the email is behindthemugpodcast@gmail.com. You can remain anonymous if you would like. And we thank you for tuning in. I just think this was a really good day to do this.
I think so too. We do have some other things lined up over the next couple of weeks of things that we're going to do. Oh my gosh. I'm going to let Amy, because I just talked for a really long time. Tell them what we're going to do.
So, we know things are changing around here. Daily, hourly. It's
literally
kind of a lot of unknowns, but we to kind of have some content for you that we can still produce after this week.
We're going to quarantine ourselves inside of a
dinosaur costume.
That's right.
Yeah.
T-Rex.
So, you may see us. We're not going to go into any public places. We're gonna maybe take a hike on Stonecrest. We might go to the park, but we're gonna be quarantined.
Oh my God, we should try to go down the slides.
Dino costumes. You know, the
Dino
blow-up ones.
costumes.
It'll keep us far enough away from each other, and we could still kind of hang out.
Can't even touch each other because our arms are
in
too
our
short.
little, be in a little bubble. So we're gonna work on that. If anybody has any used dino costumes, if they
Can we
want
go
to
get my
donate,
windshield wiper fixed with our dino costumes
yeah,
on?
if they would do it, they might have to like come out and like swipe your card from the door or something. I don't know how that would work. We'll have to work on that.
Oh, everything's
We'll
a
get all that.
changing.
Yeah, everything's changing right now.
Things are
so,
changing.
But yeah,
That's it.
yeah,
Is that it?
yeah. I think it is.
I don't even know if we should cheers right now.
No, we can't.
Can we high five?
Air five. Air five.
Air cheers.
Thank you all so much again for tuning in, and we'll be praying for you. We're hoping everyone has a good week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
You've been listening to Behind the Mug Podcast, hosted by Jen Lafferty-Kopecky and Amy Wallen-Reed. Your producer is Kevin Horn. This has been a production of Hat Media Services.